Hello, welcome to ear training part 6. This is the 6th part in an ongoing series, so please check out the other videos if you haven't to get up to speed, and let's get started. In this lesson we're going to be moving on from what we've looked at in the previous episodes. We looked at intervals at the start in the first couple, and then we've looked at chords. And now we're going to be moving on from there and looking at moving melodic lines in the forms of scales and how to identify those. We're going to be looking at 4 of the most common or 4 of the most useful scales or modes, depending on which way you want to look at them, in this lesson. And that's going to be the major scale, the minor scale, the Lydian scale or mode, and the Dorian scale or mode. I'm going to refer to them as modes from now on, but you may call them whatever you like. The Dorian mode and the Lydian mode are both closely related to the minor scale, that's the natural minor scale, and the major scale respectively, which is why I've chosen to include them here. Now, it's worth noting that all the examples and all the while when I'm talking about this, I'm going to be playing these scales over a drone note. Now that means that if we're in the key of A, and I'm going to play an A major scale, I'm going to play that with an A ringing out throughout, which would be like this. Now, the reason for doing that is it helps your ear pick out the intervals within the scale and their relationship to the root note. And I'll be doing that for the next couple of lessons, and then we'll be doing a lesson that basically requires us to pick out the scale completely on its own, basically, which is a lot more difficult, so I'm spoiling you a little bit for the first 2. So like I said, we've got the major scale, which sounds like this, which everyone should find pretty straightforward to recognize. It's the happy scale. It's so many popular melodies are just built from it. It is the root of Western harmony. I think you can sort of trace everything back to the major scale. Even all the modes and scales we're looking at are built from within the major scale, which is another lesson in itself. So I don't think that one requires too much explanation. The other one is the minor scale, which again is fairly straightforward. It's sad, it's a little bit moody, it's a bit more sinister than the major scale, and comparing those two together should be impossible to tell them, to confuse them, sorry. But if you are having trouble with it, simple fingering for these scales, to play them in A, we can play 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret on the E string, 5th, 7, 9 on the A, and then 6, 7 on the D string. And to play the minor scale we can play 5, 7, 8, 5, 7, 8, and then 5, 7. And if you are struggling telling the difference, then give those a play through till it locks in, but it should get its hooks in you pretty early on. The other 2 modes or scales that we're going to be looking at are closely related to each of these, and that's where the confusion's hopefully going to start to arise, because we should be able to solve that in this lesson. Now, the Lydian mode is closely related to the major scale, the Dorian mode is closely related to the minor, and when I say closely related, they are exactly the same apart from one difference each. The Lydian mode, so let me just play a straight major and then I'll play the Lydian mode. So the major scale is built up from the root, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th in a major scale. That's what we sort of defer everything to when we're talking about intervals. And the only difference between that and the Lydian is the 4th note. So instead of going, the Lydian mode raises that 4th note. So it sounds a little bit more exciting, a little bit more mysterious, and just that one change, that sharpened 4, to me gives it a completely different sound. If I just play a straight major, it's, you know, very nice and very unassuming, very straight down the line, but if I play the Lydian, to me that one note gives it so much more excitement. And for me, it's my favourite of the sort of standard modes to use just when I'm improvising or messing around. So listen for that interval. This one here, which is the tritone, the sharp 4 or the flat 5. In terms of interval recognition, like we talked about in the first video, though it is the sharp 4, it isn't the sharp 5, the flat 5 in this sense, because the 5 is the regular perfect fifth. When we're talking about it within the scale, it's the 4th note that's raised, so we need to refer to it as the sharp 4. Now, as far as real life examples go, for this scale there are a few, but the best one is probably everyone's favourite American Family, which I won't mention for legal reasons. But yeah, the Simpsons theme. That's Danny Elfman, who did the score for that, and if you listen to any of Danny Elfman's scores, he seems to love this mode, which is fantastic. It comes any of his work with Tim Burton. If you listen to his soundtracks, he's really milking that Lydian mode. So yeah, if you want some real life examples of that, then check that out. But yeah, that sharp 4 really distinguishes it from the major scale, especially when we've got this drone, so the example should be a little bit easier with that there. So the last scale or mode that we're going to be looking at in this lesson is the Dorian mode, which is similar to the minor scale, and instead of the 4th being altered this time, it's the 6th, and again that's raised. So here's the minor scale, and here's the Dorian mode. So we can hear that. Now, the way I distinguish that between the minor is the natural minor is that the normal 6, the natural 6, is very tense against the root, and the raised 6, the major 6, is very open, and there's a bigger distance between the two. So that's how I distinguish it. It's a bit more airy, I suppose, than the natural minor scale. Now, there are numerous real life examples for the Dorian mode, but none of which that I can bring out in melodic form. The only way I can think of it being used off the top of my head is in a chordal sense, in Pink Floyd tunes where the sort of Dorian mode is outlined. But again, it is just that. So this is the minor, and the Dorian. So just listen for that wider interval on the 6, and hopefully that should stand out for you. Because again, like I say, that 6 that's included in the natural minor scale is very abrasive sometimes. If I'm improvising using that scale, I might avoid it if I'm using if I'm playing over a drone, it's not too bad. But if I'm playing in any kind of moving harmonic sense, it can be quite jarring. But that Dorian note is a lot softer, and again adds a really interesting air to the mode. So that's the difference between these 4 scales and modes. Okay, I'm going to shut off the camera now, and then we're going to cut to black. There's going to be 20 examples. I'm going to play each scale from the bottom to the top and back to the bottom twice, just for 1 octave. And I'm going to play each one over a drone or a root note, which should help you identify the notes in the scale. So it's either going to be the major scale, the minor scale, the Lydian mode, or the Dorian mode. And if you want to get really fancy, the traditional name for the major scale is the Ionian mode, and the traditional name for the minor scale is the Aeolian mode. For every example, you'll hear each scale played over a drone, up and down 1 octave twice. Example 1. Example 2. Example 3. Example 4. Example 5. Example 6. Example 7. Example 8. Example 9. Example 10. Example 11. Example 12. Example 13. Example 14. Example 15. Example 16. Example 17. Example 18. Example 19. Example 20. I hope this has been useful for some of you. In the next lesson we're going to be looking at the last 3 modes built from the major scale, and then the lesson after that we're going to be recapping everything we've done scale wise, but we're going to make it a little bit more difficult for ourselves. So please rate and subscribe and tune in next time for some more, and hopefully I'll see you soon.